Welcome back to the Creatively Curious podcast. I'm your host, Ashley Walter. In this episode, I wanted to talk to you about EFT tapping, so emotional freedom tapping. And it's a technique that I use with myself and I've used with clients. And there's actually lots of research now to support this modality in helping, when you're feeling some distress and discomfort. And it's fairly simple. So I'll kind of just go over, I won't go over the research, but I'll find, I have some research that I can link to in the show notes. And I'll just quickly go over the points if you're not familiar with them. So the first one is the inner eyebrow. So where your eyebrow starts, close to the nose. And then the outer eyebrow, and you want to tap. I usually end up tapping about 10 times. I don't think there's really a set rule about that. I kind of just tap until I feel like moving on. And then under the eye, so where that bone is, kind of under, for me, under my dark circles, there, underneath your nose, and that can kind of be in the middle. I usually use my 3 fingers. Usually use 2 fingers for the other points, 3 fingers underneath my nose, underneath the bottom lip, above the chin where there's that indent. Use my 3 fingers there. And then I usually move over. I'm using my right hand because I'm right-handed. I usually move over to underneath my left collarbone. And there I notice I'm using 4 fingers. And then underneath the armpit. So for ladies, that's kind of the bra line there. And then on the top of the head, and I kind of move all around using my 4 fingers there too. So those are the points. And I do have a video, so if you watch on Spotify, the video is there and it should be in YouTube as well. For those just listening, hopefully that's enough for you. And the reason I wanted to talk about tapping in this episode is that I've had kind of a funky week. I don't know if it's part of coming back from traveling. I find I get a bit of back away from traveling blues, back to the basic blues. So I've been feeling a bit of that. And where we were, the weather was, it wasn't super hot, but it wasn't freezing. It was above zero. There's green grass. Things were growing over there. There were flowers in every place that we visited. And here I come back to Canada in Edmonton where I live, and it got really cold. When we first got back, actually, it was above zero and it seemed like spring, and I felt pretty hopeful that we had missed out on winter. Having said that, it was the beginning of March, which I should know better. But anyway, it got really cold here, really snowy, and it just seems like a slog. Anyone who lives here knows like this time of year is really hard because we feel spring coming, we can see things melting, but it's still winter. There's still quite a bit of snow here because we had like literally a snowfall warning, snowed a whole bunch. There was a big blizzard. And oh, I don't know. I've been just feeling off and even just off with my kids. And I've had a lot of that like just yip yappering mind drama, inner critic stuff happening. And I've talked about this before. I talked about it last episode where I write to my feelings. So I've done that. I've journaled. I move my body every day. I'm exercising. I probably am, if I'm being honest, not eating the best. I eat okay, but we ended up buying some kind of treats for St. Patrick's Day. Um, I'm hormonal. Am I allowed to talk about that here? I'm, a lady, a woman in my late 40s, so the hormones are interesting month to month now. I feel sometimes like I'm back to being a teenager, which I think might be coinciding and I don't know, not mixing well with my daughter, who also seems to be getting hormonal. She's 10. So things are kind of funky with us. Um, yeah, the hormones are raging around here. And anyway, I'm moving my body and getting outside, doing other things, blah, 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 still feel kind of funky. So I've been relying on the tapping. So that's been helping me. So one thing I really like to do is you kind of name whatever it is that you're feeling. Uh, and maybe it doesn't have to be one thing. Anxious, ragey. I've been a bit ragey. And there was an incident with my daughter where I really don't like how I handled it, but I repaired that with her. But I've been kind of ruminating on that a bit too. So you can kind of pick whatever incident you're maybe wanting to tap on and then just kind of rate how active that feeling is for you. So I've had a almost a week from that incident, so it's not as prevalent as it was, but you can give it a rating between 1 and 10, 10 being the most, um, I guess, what's the right word here? Like a really strong feeling. 10 would be like, ah, I feel super angry, super ragey. 1 would be like, yeah, I feel kind of agitated. So give whatever it is that you're feeling. Maybe it's sadness, maybe it's anxiety, whatever it is, give it a rating. And then we'll come back to that after the tapping. And generally, that rating would be lower, so less active for you. Sometimes it increases because you're thinking about that episode and the tapping is kind of releasing that energy, that feeling. And if that is true for you, then you want to keep doing more rounds of the tapping so that then that feeling is reduced in your body. That's the whole point of the EFT tapping is you want to take something that's pretty active for you and then help reduce that feeling and those emotions in your body. So so ideally then you would want to at the end of the tapping rounds have that rating be lower on the 1 to 10 scale. And I also like this as an OT because we like to kind of rate things and we have a marker then of the effectiveness of our intervention. So our EFT tapping would be our intervention. And then at the end of that, how are we feeling? And I'm trying to also model this for my kids because it's something that they can do anywhere. And obviously it's hard to do kind of right in the moment, but sometimes I will, like even at the dinner table, if I'm feeling agitated about whatever, I will just start tapping and I'm modeling for them something that could be useful for them moving forward. And I didn't know about this when I was a kid. I wish all children would be taught this, all people would be taught this, hence this podcast, spread the word. Um, so, and actually, one thing I'll mention too is that I ended up not doing tapping. I was introduced, I think, initially during my fertility journey, and my acupuncturist used it and recommended it. And Nick Ortner, recently did some of his, he was having a big workshop boot camp thing where he did some tapping. And I initially, when I was introduced to it, I wouldn't do it because I didn't know what to say. So you're supposed to kind of like initially, oh, and Gabby Bernstein too, she uses it. You tap, I guess I forgot to mention that. So initially, you tap on the side of your hand, karate chop, where, how am I going to explain this? It's your metacarpal, your D5 metacarpal. So any occupational therapist, physical therapist. So it's the side, again, how am I going to, ulnar side, which side is that? Your outside, not your thumb side. So your little pinky finger, but down in the palm on the side. There. Explain that. Okay. So you kind of chop on that part initially. And that part's easy. You say, even though I'm feeling whatever it is that you're feeling, so insert that, even though I'm feeling anxious and I'm feeling angry, I deeply love and accept myself. And one thing I learned from Nick Ortner's recent event that he was doing is he says, I love, accept, and forgive myself, which I actually find it just a scooch bit activating. So that's interesting. And I, for whatever reason, I like to throw the word honor in there. So you could just say love and accept myself, or love, accept, and forgive myself. I say love, honor, accept, and forgive myself. So even though I'm feeling anxious and angry, and you just keep tapping, tapping, tapping. I love, honor, accept, and forgive myself. So that's where we start. And so that piece I feel like is easy to think about what to say. And then the rest of it, I would get really kind of nervous and panicky about, oh, I don't know the right things to say. And someone else who does a lot of tapping, she said, which ultimately tapping, you're activating like the acupuncture points, they're pressure points that you're activating. So it doesn't even matter if you say anything. If you're noticing what you're feeling and then you just start tapping, so inner eye, that you'll have benefit even if you don't say anything. So I don't want that to stop you. Sorry, outer eye. I don't want that to stop you from doing it because it stopped me for a long time. Underneath the nose, underneath your lip, above your chin, underneath your collarbone, underneath your arm, and on top of your head. And so then I might start by saying, oh, I'm feeling so anxious and I'm feeling so angry at my kids. I just yelled at my daughter. I didn't like what I said or did. I'm feeling some shame about that. Underneath the collarbone, underneath the arm, on top of your head. And I don't like that I got so upset. My kids really seem to activate me when they're fighting, when they're not getting along. Inner eyebrow, outer eyebrow. And I'm feeling underneath the eye, I'm feeling lots of anger. And I'm not feeling very good about how I responded. Underneath your lip, underneath the collarbone. And the thought I'm having is that I'm a bad parent. Underneath the arm, armpit, and just taking some deep breaths, and on top of my head. Inner eyebrow. And even though I'm having that thought that I'm a bad parent, outer eyebrow, I know that that's just a thought underneath that eye, underneath my nose, and that thought does not feel good. Underneath my lip, above my chin. And even though I'm having that thought, underneath my collarbone, I know it's not true. Underneath my armpit, on top of my head. I know I am a good parent. Inner eyebrow, outer eyebrow. I know my kids are good. Underneath the eye. And I know sometimes underneath the nose, I know sometimes we're just having a hard time. Underneath my lip. And even though we have a hard time, we're good people. Underneath the arm. On top of the head, I care about my kids. When I make a mistake, inner eyebrow, I repair that with them. I apologize. Outer eyebrow, I demonstrate to them what that looks like if they make a mistake and how to repair that underneath the eye. And that's a good example underneath the nose. And there are lots of ways I'm a good parent and a good person. Underneath the lip, collarbone, underneath the arm. I play with my kids lots. I tell them I love them all the time. On top of the head, I'm affectionate. Inner eyebrow, I think showing myself compassion when I mess up is a good thing as well. Outer eyebrow, underneath the eye. And ultimately, under the nose, under the lip. Collarbone. I love, honor, accept, and forgive myself. Take a couple deep breaths. On top of the head. Well, that actually feels pretty complete to me. I feel more grounded. The number that I had rated myself at is less now. And I feel good about what I was saying towards the end. So that's one thing I would say too, is I was so worried about what to say. And now I feel like it always kind of starts off negative. And what did I hear Nick Ortner say? He said he learned it from Louise Hay. Hopefully I can remember it. If you want a clean house, you gotta you gotta see the dirt. If you want a clean house, you gotta see the dirt. And the dirt in this circumstance would be just all that, you know, my feelings and all those things that you say, like the shame. That's more, I guess, the piece, the shame, and then I'm a bad parent. So that's what I was saying about myself. That's the dirt. And those are those painful thoughts that we deal with, or I help people see with life coaching that aren't helpful. That's not a helpful thought for me to have. And that ultimately kind of creates that shame spiral, all those things that I was saying and thinking. And but I have to be aware that that's what I'm saying to myself in order to get out of it. So if you're just continually saying those things to yourself and not addressing it, then it just becomes a big problem. So in order to clean house, you got to see the dirt. And that's always how it kind of starts. It's sort of this negative, I'm feeling these ways, I'm saying these things, I'm thinking these things, and I'm a good person. And I know that, and I'm a good parent. And like it just seems to kind of spin itself towards feeling better, the things that I'm thinking and in my body feels better. So I feel like it was a little bit challenging for me to say out loud which points I was on while also thinking of what to say. So I hope that you could follow. If it was challenging just via audio, please feel free to check out on Spotify the video or on YouTube, which I will link to in the show notes. And hopefully that will be a little bit better for you because then you can see the points that I was tapping on. You can see how I was going through it. And you can do this with anything. You can feel free not to say anything. The thing that's important to say at the beginning is when you're karate chopping on the side of your hand, below the little finger in the palm on the side, that's important to say. Even though I'm feeling these feelings and having these thoughts, I love, honor, accept, and forgive myself. That's really the important piece there. Oh, sometimes I just do that. I'll just karate chop that point and say those things, do it underneath the table. And that just feels good, right? So just whatever feels good. Let's just focus on doing that. So if you have any questions, if you want to reach out to learn more about this, I'd be happy to talk to you, and I hope this helps you. Take care.